Hey guys, welcome back to the 10th episode of the Amon Amisha podcast. Today, we have some fun in store for you with some talks about the NBA playoffs. Obviously, Heat should win in 5, and I guess the Nuggets are kind of cool. But then next, talk a little bit about some NFL rule changes and some running backs around the league. Hey again, everyone. Back to the podcast. Um, I spoke right before the record button there for a second, so that's why he's laughing. But we're all good right now. But to kick things off again, obviously NBA playoffs are doing their thing. It's been a lot of fun watching these games. Obviously, the Nuggets Lakers had kind of a crazy end. I mean, not a crazy end, but like a crazy series, I guess. For being an Eastern Conference final. But I guess what were your thoughts, Josh, on just kind of how that series ended up playing out?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good series. Honestly, it was a lot closer than what people looked at. I know there's a lot of like the major discussion is going to be like, has LeBron caught up to Jordan yet? And so then the LeBron stands will be like, oh no, he was injured, or his help didn't help him out in this game and stuff like that. And Anthony Davis did nothing. Um, it's really the Nuggets. The Nuggets won this. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, they hit some crazy shots, like Jamal Murray and like Nikola Jokic hit some otherworldly shots, but really, like, I think people just didn't know how good the Nuggets were, and they needed to see something like this to happen to see like, oh, okay, the Nuggets are actually like the finals favorites that we all talking about. Um, I'm not going to include myself in that because I thought the Celtics were going to win the NBA Finals, and it wasn't looking good for me until yesterday. So I don't know if the Celtics can pull it off. But back to the Nuggets, I just think they know how to utilize off-ball movement really well. And I've been discussing a lot on the IG stories. If you've not been following along, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel first of all, but also follow us on Instagram at Adam on a Mission. We'll have the Instagram in the show notes, and then later on at the end of the video. Um, but in that, I've been describing the two-man actions between Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray in one set play where um, Jamal Murray screens for maybe a big or maybe a wing player towards to allow them to have a free run to the paint, and the defenders have to help out on that, and that allows Jamal Murray when he rolls off of that towards the 3 point line, which is backwards logic to how you would normally do a pick and roll. The roll man goes towards the basket. Jamal Murray's going away from the basket. He curls up to Jokic for the handoff and then goes back either towards the basket or if he feels like if he has enough room for the pull-up jumper or a three-point shot, he'll take that as well. It's really been an unstoppable play when they've been running it against the Lakers. And the Lakers have never figured out to stop that play in particular. But just their offense efficiency and movement and intelligence was otherworldly. Like I can't say enough about Jokic. Jokic sees the game as a passer the exact same way as LeBron does, but I think he's an even a better passer than LeBron because he understands the concepts too. If like a backdoor cut is stopped, where who do I go next to the ball? And they do a really good job of building around Jokic and Murray to have cutters and 3 point shooters. Like KCP is a really good 3 point shooter. I don't think he gets talked about enough. Bruce Bound has a lot of energy on the offensive rebounds. Michael Porter Jr. really good step back 3 pointer, 3 point specialist, especially in the corners. Um, so I think you saw a lot of that from the Nuggets, and it was just a lot to handle for the Lakers. Um, and if you look at Anthony Davis's games, like besides Game Four and LeBron's games and Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, they all played well. They all played well. They just couldn't stop the Denver Nuggets consistently enough to make that matter. And despite that, it was a one possession game where LeBron had a chance to tie it. I think he made the wrong decision not kicking it out to Davis, and he ended up running into a double team. But that again, that's really good defense on Murray. So, in short, I think the Nuggets won this. They deserve to win. It could have easily gone, became a 2-2 series. That's how close the series was, but the Lakers shouldn't be disappointed by any means. They weren't expected to reach the conference finals anyway. Um, really entertaining series for a sweep. It's been one of the most fun watches I've had for a 4-0 series win by the Nuggets.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, I think people like see LeBron and immediately think that like he should be going to the finals, and like look how far he got with a team that ended up coming in as the seventh seed into the playoffs. And I think that's pretty good. Obviously, LeBron fans are saying, I mean, it's a win for LeBron because according to Michael Jordan fans, losing in the conference finals is better than losing in the finals. But besides that, yeah, I think big part of the Nuggets just success was the fact that they have players all around that can score. And so like after watching game one, everyone's like, oh, Rui can take Jokic out of the game. Um, we figured out, we figured out the Nuggets offense. And then they still lost game one. And then they're like, well, we got game two because we know Rui is the guy to stop Jokic. And then they lost game two because the Nuggets just have guys that can score. And like, like you were saying, they just couldn't figure out how to stop their other playmakers on offense. And so despite Lakers playing pretty solid defense, like really good defense on Jokic in general, they just kind of struggled to keep up. And it's like LeBron kind of had his moments of struggling. Anthony Davis wasn't always like it wasn't the player that you needed him to be in the moments that he was on the court, which is pretty disappointing. It was almost like you were relying on Hachimura and Reeves to kind of keep you in the game, which I think that's phenomenal young core to have for the Lakers for like the next however many years they have them. But having to rely on those two guys and not your two, superstars that you have on the team is kind of what ended up killing Lakers in at least closing out games and, keeping things competitive and getting at least a couple wins in this series.
And I also think the Lakers could have won this game easily. I think through whatever, like LeBron scored 31 in the first half, which is otherworldly. Like, I mean, I'm saying this as a person who thinks Michael Jordan's the best player in the game, like that's ever played the game, and I have LeBron number two. So it's not like I think LeBron sucks or anything. He's the second greatest player of all time I've ever seen. I just think in moments like these, like Michael Jordan, like once he seen that being aggressive, getting into the paint is working like it has in the first half, he's going to use that and abuse that to no end. He's not going to let up. And I think one of the examples is you saw LeBron stop doing that. Yeah, it's important to get others involved, but if that's a play that's working, you still have to go for that from time to time. Like the large part of the third quarter, he didn't do any of that. And it wasn't until like the last play in the fourth quarter, like he had a couple layups like in between, don't get me wrong, in the fourth quarter. But he wasn't as aggressive in the third quarter and large portions of the fourth quarter. I think that costed them because that was something that was working. If you paid attention to the broadcast, I think it was Stanley and Gundy on it, and I forget who the other broadcaster was on it. They highlighted that the Lakers didn't take that many threes at all, and they were still like well in control of this game. They were up by double digits, well in double digits, and the Nuggets came back on them. But their recipe for what worked was getting into the paint, scoring into the paint, using your size advantage, strength advantage, and Davis and LeBron, and offensive rebounding that way. That was the recipe that was working for them and built that lead. I think they could have done more in that area and not try to get too cute. And I think getting too cute costed them.
Yeah, and I think, you can look at like Anthony Davis's stats throughout this final game and think that he played
phenomenal
well.
Series. Phenomenal series.
Yeah, but I think that he could have stepped up a bit more in this game for you have he's kind of your like iconic big man that you have right next to the basket, but like about half his points came from three free throws, which obviously they do come from when he's getting fouled, taking those dunks, layups, and whatnot. But think that plus him getting a lot of rebounds, which is also nice, but like having a small amount of assists just kind of felt like it looks like he played good, but then like the impact that he had for his team sometimes felt like it should have been more for a guy of his stature. And
there's a bunch of memes going around. Like, yeah, I totally get that what you're trying to say. Because like even during the Warriors series and I think the Grizzlies series before that, there's always like one game he's really good, really elite, reminds us why he's top five, and then the next game is like, where the heck has he been? Unfortunately for the Lakers, that happened in Game 4. But I also think the Lakers could have done a better job scripting plays for him. I know, like in that last play, everybody knows the ball is going to LeBron, right? LeBron even wants to take that last shot. But I think what was working for the Lakers as well is like having Anthony Davis roll to the rim and go on alley oops because the one part of Jokic's defensive game that caught up to him that the Lakers sought out with different guys and different personnel was the alley oop because they know Jokic is not going to jump that high off the ground, so they can get some easy elevated dunks off of passes. And LeBron is such a great passer. I think the Lakers missed an opportunity and for more situations like that.
Mhm.
But I agree. I expected Anthony Davis to step up a little bit, like he did in games 1, 2, and 3. He had a phenomenal game one. He
Mhm.
had 40 points in game one, and like I think he had 20 rebounds like in one or multiple games this series. Um, and I was kind of expecting that. Like you have like a top five. I'm gonna say it. Jokic is a top five player in the NBA right now, and as a big man on the other side of that team, you got to challenge. This is the playoffs. This is a challenge. Like mano a mano, who's the best guy? You got to show up and show out. And Anthony Davis didn't do that in this game, and I think
Mhm.
that also cost them.
Yeah, but there was also another playoff game that just happened. It was obviously the Celtics and the Heat. The Celtics, they won the game. It was a phenomenal win for the Celtics. I think it's very it's very much needed for, I guess, just like the culture of the team. Just like you looked at that game three and Celtics just didn't really seem like they wanted to be there anymore. But obviously they turned that around in game four. But what you see from the game?
I saw a completely different team from what I saw in game three. I was just like, I mean, I had to watch game three just to see like what exactly is like not working for them. But like once they pulled in the subs in like the early fourth quarter, I was just like, I'm done. I don't want to see this game anymore, and I kind of just gave up. I'm like, because the Celtics gave up. I'm like, how? Like, do you get like so depressed by losing the first two games at home that you decide not to show up in a pivotal game three? And I was just like, the series is done. It's gonna be a sweep. You said it on the pod last week. My heated four, obviously. And I laughed at it because I didn't actually think it was gonna happen, and you were pretty close. You were pretty
Yeah,
close, I gotta say.
almost there. I just got the wrong sweep.
Yeah, wrong series, wrong series. But I mean, you got to give the Heat credit, like leading up to Game Four, because they played with more energy, they played with more effort, and in this series, there's no like schematics. Like, yeah, maybe the Celtics can pass it a lot better, and maybe Tatum and Brogdon at times and Jalen Brown can stop being loose with their dribbles and keep it tight dribbles when they're not turning it over and making stupid plays. Marcus Smart included. Like they can limit that, but the Celtics feed off of energy on the defensive end really well. And although I wanted to see Robert Williams started instead of Al Horford because of that, um, they did a phenomenal job in Game Four, stepping up on the defensive end, helping out, not biting constantly on Jimmy Butler when he's baiting them to throw to an open shooter. That's been absolutely killing them this series. Um, so they did a really good job cleaning that up in game four, playing connected on defense. That definitely helped, and spending the ball around. I think they should use Derek White a little bit more. He's been very effective on open threes, and he stepped up defensively as well. So it remains to be seen. When they come back home, will that intensity continue? Better because they're at home. Um, you get the crowd into it. They, they've had a lot of momentum on the road in this past game. They went on like three different runs to firmly take this game. Can they replicate that? And I think if they if they don't worry about like winning the series, sounds counterintuitive. Don't worry about winning the series. Just worry about winning the next game because you're fighting for your playoff lives here. Um, maybe my prediction can still come through. We'll see, but it's up to them. There's no
Mhm.
strategy here against the Heat. The Heat are very effort based, so you got to bring that same effort and you got to bring that unselfishness. It can't be about Tatum and Brown. It's got to be about the other guys. But what was working for the Celtics during their run was being unselfish, passing the ball around, ball
Mhm.
movement, motion, screens, um, making quick decisions, not dribbling it too much. They got to clean all that up if they want to win this series. But first, they got to do it in Game 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm just looking at this game. Obviously, like props to the Celtics. They definitely earned this win. They played probably the best basketball I've seen them for a little bit. Even though they won their past two other series, I still think that this might have been one of their best games in the playoffs, just as a unit. Just a nice. I don't see the Heat dropping 4 games in a row. So like, I still have the Heat going to the finals. But just looking at this game in particular, I think Kyle Lowry kind of fumbled the bag here. He had a lot of turnovers. He was pretty awful shooting from almost everywhere. And I've seen you had like Bam, one of your guys that you like, one of your focal players. He was kind of struggling with dribbling and turning the ball as well. And so, obviously, I think that should be a big part of like what they go over today. In preparation for their next game, just ball control, making sure you don't turn over the ball. Because I think I saw somewhere in the fourth quarter. I think one of the announcers had said that the Celtics had scored 20 points off of Heat turnovers, and I'm like, well,
wow.
If you're giving up those kind of points, like it's really hard to stay in a game, and so it's really important for the Heat to kind of just clean up on their turnovers and making sure that they're getting better shot selection, because that's one thing I noticed this gas game as well, is some of their shot takes are kind of iffy, especially I feel like Kyle Lowry was pretty cold all game, and he had like, I don't know, like 9-10 shot attempts, maybe just under that, but he had a decent amount of shot attempts just for like 2 to go in, and I was like, they should play better. Hopefully they come back more collected and maybe less antsy now that they're not thinking about trying to sweep, but
Yeah, no, on that note, they did a really good job limiting their turnovers in games 1 through 3, and that's their part of their Heat culture. Don't turn over the ball, play unselfishly. They're a lot like what worked for the Celtics last year. These are two teams that are very similar. Celtics just have more talent level. It's a reason why I thought they would win this series in 7. But the Celtics haven't played up to their talent. So the Heat have earned this 3-1 lead with their effort, with their defense, with their unselfishness. And Spoelstra's done a fabulous job up to this point. We'll see. We'll see, because I think this was an adrenaline win for the Celtics. They might grab Game 5, but like you mentioned, I don't see the Heat dropping 4 in a row. Realistically, they might wrap this up in Game 6. But if they don't, it's trouble. It's trouble because the Celtics will have all the momentum by then, obviously.
Yeah, so I think we're both assuming that Nuggets and Heat will be the finals, I guess, duo that's going to go in. Is that what you're thinking that, right?
Yeah, at this point, I'm thinking that as well.
Yeah. Obviously, Nuggets are going to be a favorite going into this. Still, I think the Nuggets throughout this playoff have been like one of the most underrated number ones, just because of the name, like I guess like the star power name of other teams that have been in the playoffs. People kind of just written off the Nuggets. Like I remember at the start of this the Nuggets Lakers series, that like I was like all the polls that I was seeing and all like the picks that like ESPN picks or whatnot that I was seeing were saying that like, oh, Lakers probably win this series, and I'm like, sure, the Lakers have played really well, but so have the Nuggets. Like no one's been able to stop the Nuggets, but people just like wrote off the Nuggets. We're like, oh, it's LeBron. LeBron's going to go to the finals, and I'm like, the Nuggets they're a number 1 seed for a reason. Obviously, the other number 1 seed kind of lost to the Heat, but the Heat are also one of the greatest number 8 seeds of all time. They're making themselves kind of in that spot. But I guess like what's your takes on I guess how the Nuggets will play and how they've been perceived throughout this playoffs?
I think they're still going to be their offensive selves. I don't see any team I don't think the Heat are going to stop them either, because it's not just stopping one guy. The Heat have Adebayo. He's underrated offensively, but I don't think he's stopping Jokic. I just don't see that at all. I think the way the Nuggets play, they play unselfishly. They play off of cutters. They have a lot of off-ball movement, and I think that will keep the Heat guessing. You can't lock into 1 or 2 guys like they've been able to on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So it's a little bit of a different story, and they got to decide how they want to employ Jimmy Butler.
Mhm.
They'll probably lock him on Jamal Murray, but Jamal Murray's not scared of anybody.
Mhm.
KCP is not scared of anybody. Bruce Brown's not scared of anybody. Michael Porter Jr. is not scared of anybody. I think Jamal Murray might be limited because Jimmy Butler's that great of a defensive player, but Jokic is going to find the open guy. So offensively, I don't think they're going to be limited. The Heat, it's really like after seeing what they did against the Celtics in Game 4, it's really dependent on the 3-point shooters. Because I think the Nuggets are also really underrated defensively. Aaron Gordon's one of the most underrated defenders on that team and in the league. I don't think I don't think the effort on LeBron James goes without isn't talked about enough. It isn't talked about enough. He did a fabulous job on LeBron. He saved the Nuggets in Game 3, saved the Nuggets in Game 4. Um, and I think him on Jimmy Butler is going to help craft a defensive scheme around stopping the Heat shooters and making sure, okay, if it's Jimmy Butler on Aaron Gordon and Jimmy wins that matchup, great. We just don't want the other guys to get hot because the Heat feed off of energy. And if those other guys get hot, like Gabe Vincent's been on a tear. I think he had 29 points in Game 3.
Mhm.
But if he goes off, then it's going to open up Jimmy Butler. It's going to open up Duncan Robinson. It's going to open up Caleb Martin, who's also been balling out of his mind. So I think the Nuggets' game plan will be to stop everybody else but Jimmy Butler, and if Jimmy Butler beats them, then he beats
Mhm. Yeah, obviously Heat and 4, right?
them. maybe you were talking about this. Maybe you're talking about the NBA
Yeah,
Finals.
yeah,
That's what it was.
it was the wrong series. Like no one is like obviously the Heat were going to beat the Celtics. There's no question about it. I was already leading up to the finals. Heat and 4.
Yeah, they had it. They had it. They just let go of the rope in Game 4. But
Yeah,
I
no,
mean, if it happens, dude, like, well, what are you doing on this podcast? You should be an analyst.
yeah, yeah, but I'm sure every other Heat fan's also saying Heat and 4. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, I think he have the like surprisingly have the guys that can make any game competitive, which was what has which has helped him get this 3-1 lead versus the Celtics. But um I guess I mean thinking back to the Celtics series, and it's like the big issue is if the Heat get down by a fair amount of points, the team falls apart, and that's what we saw. I mean, last night with the Celtics, like last week in last week's podcast, I was saying, yeah, the biggest problem for the Heat is relying on the 3-pointers, and like while they can get hot, it's harder to get hot when you're down by 15, 20 points. And I mean, any team's like that, but I feel like Heat just have a harder time overcoming that. And so if the Heat can kind of find the rhythm against the Nuggets, um, I think that, each game can go down to the wire. And obviously, if Martin and Vincent turn into the Splash Brothers from Wish.com, uh, then obviously they'll give the Nuggets a run for their money. But yeah, I'm excited for the finals. It better be the Heat going to the finals. I'll be really angry if Jimmy Butler and the Heat throw 4 games, but it
I
is
don't
what
know
it
about
is.
that. You don't sound too angry right now. I don't know if
Yeah,
I can buy that.
yeah. Well, because I'm assuming that the Heat will move on. They won't get eliminated by the Celtics. So
No
I'd
matter
have.
what the case is, like this is great for basketball because
Mhm,
the all the superstars like in the Heat and Nuggets series, assuming the Heat knock out the Celtics, they're underrated. Jimmy Butler's still underrated.
mhm,
Like I think people only started to sing his praises when they saw him during his playoffs because the point totals he had.
mhm,
Jokic has been underrated his entire career, despite having 2 MVPs. Murray is a top 3 point guard that nobody talks about because they don't consider him top 3. And he
mhm,
was coming off an ACL the past couple seasons, so
mhm.
people thought it was washed.
Yeah.
This and just the way these two teams play, um, Celtics also play this way. They just been inconsistent with it. But
Mhm,
the Heat and Nuggets especially, they make it a point to get everybody involved. They give a lot. They give the role players a lot more shots than you would see on other teams, and the superstars are very unselfish.
mhm,
It'll be great. It's great for basketball to see like, oh, okay, yeah, the Nuggets may have 2 stars and they're headed by 2 stars. They're not talked about. Like they didn't go out and get them in free agency. These guys were draft picks. There's a lot. There's a lot to be said. The Heat side, they have 4 undrafted players on their team. There's a lot to show that draft and development is also super key. And going all in free agency on superstars and trying to pair superstars together isn't the only route to a championship. Great coaching, great defense, understanding everybody's roles, and playing unselfishly can also lead to a championship, regardless of who wins. And I think that's great for the game. It's going to lead to a lot more team building strategies and not just locking in on superstars who only play like 40 games or 50 games and like only in it for the money.
Yeah, and I think either team that wins, I think it's it's big for the both franchises and both all the players that are involved with the winning team. It's obviously Nuggets with a championship. It's their first ever. It's huge. And that just means the Broncos are up next for winning a championship. But then the Heat win. Obviously, Jimmy Butler gets the ring that a lot of people say that they want him to have, which I'm included in that population of people wanting Jimmy Butler to get a ring. But I think it's really cool to see 4 undrafted role players that are making it getting in and out of the starting lineup to have a ring that they've actually played for, and I think obviously what you were saying about the whole team building aspect, I think it'll be a really great outcome, I guess. Whoever wins, obviously I want the Heat to win, but whoever comes out on top, I think it's just going to be a great thing for just everyone involved. But any last thoughts on NBA playoffs, championship, or anything? Or
no, it's been really great stories. The Heat especially, obviously as a Bulls fan, I'm kind of sad because I'm like, if this was the playoff possibilities, I would have hoped the Bulls can pull it out against the Heat. And the fact that we were the inflection point for the Heat to get this far, I'm pretty sad about. But no, it's great stories. Like the Heat, 4 undrafted free agents, Tyler Hero's out. They're still doing their thing. Jimmy Butler is being a great leader. It's so funny how he trolls the other teams. Like he was imitating Al Horford's timeout stance. And I just found it. He's absolutely hilarious. Even after game 4, he's like, "Oh, we're just gonna drink some wine. We're gonna celebrate. We're gonna enjoy our time. Get away from the game, and then we'll win game 5." I'm just like, not the route I would go, but hey, if it decreases the anxiety, you do you, man. And the Nuggets have always been they've always been waiting for this. They've just been unlucky the past couple seasons, and I think the way they play, the way they're motivated, the way they're unselfish. Like Jokic is not about himself. Hey, he's just a down to earth guy, and he's him. He's him too. So I think it'll be a great series no matter what.
Yep. But with the playoffs, there's also another playoffs going on. If you may or may not know, but NHL, it's pretty exciting. Obviously, there's
hockey is a sport, y'all. It is a sport.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're down to also the conference finals, I believe, with the NHL. And let's see, I mean, for us right now, tonight, right? Yes, tonight you have the Panthers and the Hurricanes playing. Any thoughts on this game or the other game or the Golden Knights games?
Yeah. Let me start with the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. I was surprised by this. I thought it'd be a little bit more of a Nick and Tubb series. Like it was so odd just seeing the stats on this. Like all the conference finals, excuse me, and the NBA and NHL have all been like sweeps until the Celtics won yesterday. And in this series, I thought it was particularly odd because the Florida Panthers have been one of the best offensive teams in the NHL, and the Carolina Hurricanes have been one of the best defensive teams in the NHL. So it was just like a rock meeting a hard place. What's going to happen? And you don't know. It's like it was so odd. Like I understood why the Florida Panthers won on the road the first 2 games against the Carolina Hurricanes because they're 6-1 on the road in these playoffs. It's no surprise. But the Hurricanes are also 5-1 at home. So you would figure it would be a split in that situation. And the fact that Carolina can't seem to buy a goal from the last game was really odd because they're one of the best 5-on-5 teams in the league. They have a lot of scoring chances. Yeah, they're missing a couple pieces, but like they're really good. I think what stands out is Florida has been really good in the power play. Like they weren't that this way in the regular season, but once they switched, I believe they changed formations. They went to four forwards and one defenseman, and instead of having like two forwards in the top unit, that helped their power play in the playoffs, and um, that was a major reason in Game Three why they won. They didn't score until the third quarter, like but those make the difference. Like the power plays are one of the biggest chances to score in hockey, and the fact that they're able to build off that and win, huge for them.
Yeah, I think also just I think it's kind of fun how the Florida Panthers being a 4 seed are looking to knock out a 1 seed in the playoffs because
They're the Miami Heat of the NHL. To bring a comparison.
yeah, I mean maybe not like play by play basis, but yeah, basically in terms of seeding, because obviously in hockey a 4 seed is the bottom seed because they obviously the way they I guess organize the playoffs is a bit different than the NBA, but yeah, basically yeah, it's like being the Heat in NHL where it's kind of funny because both are Florida teams, but
All the Florida teams are designed to be good, and then also if you look at their roster construction too, a lot of guys like who you would they're not like the no name they're not like the name players except maybe Matthew Tkachuk, I think.
Mhm,
He got traded from Calgary over there, and that's it. It's literally just role players doing their thing. And
mhm.
hey, that's more power to the NHL because everybody thought the Boston Bruins were that team until they got knocked over. And then a lot of people thought the New York Rangers were that team until they got knocked out. And then we'll talk about them later, but a lot of people thought the Dallas Stars were going really far, and they've been a disappointment.
Yeah, yeah, Dallas Stars have been not so good. I thought that they'd put a better fight against the Golden Knights. Obviously, I don't like the Golden Knights, and so I'll always root against them. But the Golden Knights have played pretty good hockey, and I mean, it's looking like it's going to be a Florida Panthers, Vegas Golden Knights, uh, Stanley Cup Finals, and hopefully the Golden Knights don't win. And I mean, I don't care who wins as long as it's not the Golden Knights.
Yeah, it's so surprising. I mean, you wouldn't expect this at the Vegas Golden Knights because they lost all their matches in the regular season to the Dallas Stars. Um, but the Dallas Stars won two of those shootouts. I think they're just like the Dallas Stars are just combusting right now. Like they have a lot of problems going on, like in like on the hockey ice and like out of the hockey ice. It's just I don't think they're in the right headspace to win. And if you look at um, their trends when they score the first goal and when they don't, it's really eye opening. It just speaks to aggressiveness of anything. Like the Vegas Golden Knights are being more aggressive to start, and that's helping them out. Dallas Stars are 7-1 when they score their first goal, and when they're not, they're 0-4. So it's pretty simple. It's just a
Mhm.
mentality thing for the Dallas Stars, and I think at this point in the series, it's way too late to turn that on. Could they pull a Celtics and like win the first game and maybe spark some discussion? Yeah, maybe. But the Vegas Golden Knights have been the best team in the NHL in scoring. Um, they've been top 10 in shots. They've been pretty high up in high danger, and while they're not good in the power play, they draw a lot of penalties. So they're a very aggressive team, and I don't see that changing. I think it's going to be a clean sweep, and both the Golden Knights series, and then also tonight when the Florida Panthers face off against the Carolina Hurricanes. But it'll be
Mhm.
pretty interesting.
Yeah, I haven't been personally super invested in it, but obviously these are some fun playoff games to be invested in if you're going to watch hockey anytime. I feel like now is kind of it's exciting just because you could witness two sweeps happening again, another playoffs, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of our news for hockey this time around. But kind of switching gears to NFL, there's obviously a huge rule change that, or I guess we can talk about this.
Yeah, we can talk about the rule change if you want. We'll get to Za'darius Smith later.
Yeah,
Let's pull that up.
yeah, the big NFL rule change. It's about the NFL kickoff. I know you're kind of reading a bit more into this. Do you want to kind of just describe what exactly the rule change is, and then I guess you can go into a bit of your thoughts.
Yeah, so essentially, it was originally like disapproved, like the owners didn't approve it, but then Roger Goodell pushed for it. So the NFL owners approved a rule change on Tuesday. Per the Athletic, this involves fair catch for the upcoming season. So the three main things to note is that the ball will be placed on the receiving team's 25-yard line if there's a fair catch on the free kick. So what that means is kickoff or safety kick. This doesn't apply to punts. Um, and if the ball, when it's fair caught, is behind the receiving team's 25 yard line. This is only set for the next season, so this is a 1 year trial. And um, the major goal with this is there are a lot of studies shown on the kickoffs. Um, while this is going to decrease the amount of returns by 7%, the main thing is they want to limit the amount of concussions that occur from this. There's a lot of studies shown that um, if they adopt this model, that the amount of concussions will reduce by 15%. So the main the main objective with this rule change is to decrease the amount of concussions. And seeing that Pat McAfee is like a large specialist with a lot of cachet, and having him talk about it so subjectively, for understandable reasons, he was a punter in the league for a while and a very effective one. I see his point, like why this is really bad for the game, and I also agree because I mean, growing up, like we're both from Chicago. We even though you grew up as a Broncos fan, you saw Devin Hester.
Hmm.
You love Devin Hester watching him like
Yeah.
return punt returns and kickoffs. This is going to dissuade a lot of that from the game because now like special team coaches like they're like, okay, if it's just going to be at, like inside the 5, just fair catch it. Just fair catch it because we're going to get free 20 yards and we don't have to worry about like doing something stupid that costs us field position. And I think that part of the game takes away a whole layer of strategy. Like that, then you got to decide, okay, maybe we can onside kick it like at the end of the game if we're down by one possession, if we really need that possession. Um, and, and when you're deciding whether to like kick it deep to have the team like return it off a squib or something, and the squib like goes behind the 25-yard line, you're screwed. Like so, there's a lot of variables and strategies that this affects, and I think it was a major mistake to make this move.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this rule change either. I mean, like I understand, like you want to, I guess, promote player safety, but um, there's a lot of guys on NFL rosters right now just because of their special teams, playmaking ability, and so as you kind of start to negate these, I guess, yeah, these rules, or yeah, if you start to negate like a kickoff return attempts, then obviously these guys become less valuable to their teams, and all of a sudden players that are have gone to the Pro Bowl or like borderline Hall of Famers for being phenomenal special teams players kind of just lose their place in the league, and all of a sudden it's like you know it just I think it hurts the game in general. Obviously, there's teams that have sucked in special teams and teams that have excelled in special teams, and you kind of you don't maybe directly see that. It has a big impact on the game already, and obviously teams with good special teams are going to be negatively affected by these rule changes, and I feel like every couple of years we just see another rule change trying to hurt kickoffs because obviously long time ago, back in the day of NFL, long time ago, um, kickoffs when when you kneeled off a kickoff, it just brought you to the 20-yard line, and then eventually they had a rule change to make it to the 25-yard line, and again it just like I remember that had a lot of, I guess, people fighting against that one as well, just because again it people like seeing the explosive kick returns. Obviously, with if these rule chains continue or like they happened a lot earlier, we lose all like the famous plays by Devin Hester. Obviously, like Deshaun Jackson's was an electric returner throughout his career, and
Cordell
um,
Patterson, you can go on and on. Percy Harvin. Like there's so many like great returners for the game because you're almost like erasing like half a phase of football. Like I shouldn't say half a phase of football, like half of like a third of like the importance of football. Think
mhm,
about the Patriots and the Jets game where that was decided by a punt return. Like I
mhm.
know like this rule doesn't affect punt returns, but if you're moving that direction, and let's say this is successful and the model like decreases concussions by 50% because everybody chickens out and they're just going to fair catch it. Are you
Hmm.
going to implement it for the punt returns now too? What's the point in having these phases of the game now? Like
Hmm.
you're gonna affect like snapper jobs, kicker jobs, punter jobs on these related kicks, the returners, the blockers, like and like that you're just wiping away roster spots if you go down this path, and I think it's a major mistake.
Hmm.
It's special teams is still an important phase of the game, especially if one team has more talent overall than the other team, like on
Hmm.
offense and defense. Teams can make up for it in the special teams game, and by making such a drastic rule change on this, I think it's a mistake. Where the NFL should be focusing on is reviewing the penalties and
Hmm.
incentivizing referees, or well, I shouldn't say punish referees, but like really make sure the reviews on the calls are accurate so that it's not affecting games on one call or the other. And doing more research into the type of equipment being used to mitigate the amount of concussions or like soft tissue injuries that occur because of equipment based biomechanic forces. So those are the two avenues they should be looking at. I don't think the rule changes like these are going to significantly decrease concussions because concussions can occur on any collision in the sport.
Hmm.
So um, they could have been a lot smarter with this. They could have thought this through without like compromising the integrity of the game.
Hmm.
But we'll see where this goes.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of going back to your Cordell Patterson point too, it's like if there weren't, kick returns where he was kind of bringing value to teams, would he even have gotten this running back role from the Falcons these past 2 seasons where he kind of just broke out of nowhere to be, kind of like a borderline elite running back in the NFL? Like you probably don't see that, and you probably, these other kind of more shifty, elusive players kind of lose out on opportunities to play, I guess, more gadgety roles within NFL offenses because obviously that's kind of taken a bit of a spike. Obviously, we have Taysom, who's kind of like the go-to gadget player that kind of started all this gadget
Your
type
tight
player.
end slot in Yahoo Fantasy and ESPN that he
Yeah.
used.
Yeah, but so you have, so you kind of take away some of those opportunities I think that are there for players, and um, I mean, hopefully we still get our fair share of stars that kind of resurges with their careers and whatnot. But it's kind of all I got for the NFL kickoff rule today.
Yeah. Okay. I know you wanted to talk about Za'Darius Smith, so let's get to him.
Yeah, last week we kind of had a couple NFL talking points, but obviously NBA news is pretty big. There's a lot of games going on, a lot of input that we had, just try to share with everybody. But yeah, big piece was that the Browns, they traded and acquired Za'Darius Smith from the Vikings. Obviously, he's 30 years old, so he's kind of around that. Like, I wonder how many years he's got. He's you're wondering how many years he's got, but with the Vikings and with the Packers, he did play relatively good football. And so, I guess, what do you think this means for the Browns? This kind of just for the next season or two, maybe.
I think this helps. This keeps another guy opposite of Miles Garrett, and they're doing a really good job as far as like instilling trust in Deshaun Watson. I know a lot of people are down on him because he didn't perform as well, like only playing like let's basically call it half a season, half of his rookie season over again with the amount of time he's missed. And the moves they made offensively, and now with this move, signal to me that they're all in on him, and they can make a championship run. So larger level, that's what I think. I think for this defense is going to really help out. I mentioned the Miles Garrett point, but I think Za'Darius Smith is also really good against the run, and that is going to be a large factor into how the Browns can stop the run when it gets to November and December. So I don't mind the compensation. I don't mind the
Mhm.
move. I think it's a great sign. And obviously for the Vikings, they're exploring all personnel changes after the defensive struggles they've had last year. So
Mhm.
um, while I disagree with Za'Darius Smith being the what do we call it? He's basically the scapegoat for why their defense struggled. Um, I understand why they did it.
Yeah, Smith also had requested a trade from the Vikings. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I know he had done that. And so, I mean, you're trying to, I guess, rebuild your defense, and you have a guy that doesn't want to be part of the next, I guess, regime of defense, and so I'm not disappointed per se that they traded him away. The compensation they got from him was 2/5 from the Browns, but they also gave the Browns 2 late round picks. I don't know exactly what those picks are, but um, obviously it's better to have 2/5 than 2 6th or 7th round picks, and um, obviously I don't know how, but we'll see how how those picks pan out, but um, I don't know. I think it's good for the Browns. Obviously, he wanted to change the scenery, and the Browns have a pretty solid defense, so I'm excited for them.
Yeah, not much to add on this. I think it will help. It'll help when you're going against like Joe Burrow, and we'll see how Kenny Pickett does. And the new look Ravens, I have high hopes for Lamar Jackson. It helps to have as many pass rushers as you can if you're the Browns' perspective. So, good move by them. They're ensuring themselves and making sure Myles Garrett's not getting double teamed every play without repercussions. So, we'll see how this pans out.
Yeah, and kind of just continuing with Vikings news. It's not like this is more of a speculation, little bit, but in the Vikings Twitter banner, they've replaced Dalvin Cook with Alexander Madison, and so now there's
Dun dun dun.
dun dun dun. Yeah, but there's a lot of talk about, or I guess more so from the fans, obviously, wondering if Dalvin Cook is on the move in the future, or if he's going to take more of a, maybe not fully backseat, but more of a backseat role, and have Alexander play, I guess, more reps during the games. But I guess, do you think Dalvin Cook could be on the move somewhere? And if he is, what teams do you think might be interested in trading for him?
Yeah, that's I don't buy it. I think this is just a business move. Like the Vikings are trying to get leverage. Let Dalvin cook, man. Like he knows what he's doing. He's capable of being the starter. He's produced. You saw him in the Zimmer years when they heavily utilized him. He has all the talent in the world. Like if you're talking fantasy, he's an RB1, no question about it. Especially in this offense, cater to him. But if it does come to a trade, there's a couple spots in mind that I think is important to note. But I don't think this will happen because it's within the conference. But I can see the Saints making a move for Dalvin Cook, considering the Alvin Kamara news. They could always make a move despite. I'll talk about another running back who I think has RB1 potential on that team. But if the Saints don't think so, Dalvin Cook's the way to go there. Jacksonville might not be the pick that everybody's thinking, but I would also consider that because then you could just keep Travis Etienne in the receiving role if you want. Just going off the top of my head here, you could go with the Broncos if you don't think like P. Ryan is a RB1 and you're looking at Javonte Williams' injury timeline coming back. And there was one team from the AFC again I was thinking of that just escaped me. Not the Ravens, although that'd be a good fit too.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, the Raiders. The Raiders, because Josh Jacobs. You're considering like, are they going to keep him after next year or not? So, those are potential options. But the running backs are like it's so saturated right now that it would be pretty tough to find an ideal landing spot for Cook at the right compensation.
Yeah, I think just another team that could be interested is the Eagles. I think the Eagles might. So obviously, I mean, they have their.
I think we lost Corstian here. 1 second. Yeah, he did mention the Eagles. I'm back on.
I'm back. I accidentally clicked off the screen somehow, but
you alive?
Yeah, I'm alive. But yeah, the Eagles. Yeah, let me just just a second. Never mind, not the Eagles. I forgot they traded for Swift. Never mind, I'm counting them out now.
They got two new running backs. I was about to say.
Yeah, no, I forgot about I forgot about the Swift trade, man. It's all good.
This guy.
But no, okay, we can switch to another bird team. The Cardinals could be interested in getting a guy like Dalvin Cook. Obviously, you have James Conner there, but I mean, he's played good football. I mean, you could always upgrade. They're kind of in that weird phase of like, you got a quarterback that you hope to be your franchise guy. You might make it like a midseason trade, get Dalvin Cook if your team's hot, and then you kind of ride him. James Conner's a 1-2 running back punch into the playoffs to kind of help ease Kyler Murray back. That's only if the Cardinals are, in playoff contention. But that's a team. I know Kyle Shanahan likes his running backs.
No, that's not
No,
happening.
I know.
You're being ridiculous right now.
Yeah, no. But no, yeah, I don't think, obviously, no, I don't think the 49ers are going to trade for Dalvin Cook. But yeah, I feel like teams that are, I guess, lacking kind of like a punchier running back, even though kind of Dalvin Cook's kind of stepped. I feel like he's taken a step back, like in terms of his, I guess, power, like punchy running ability. He's obviously a phenomenal receiving back still, in my opinion, but I think that there's reasons why there's talks of him being traded with it between like sports announcers and just fans in general, saying that like Dalvin Cook's kind of towards the end of his career with the Vikings, at least. I personally think that he's probably the second veteran on the chopping block just in the league. I think obviously Joe Mixon's the one that everyone talks about as being on the potential chopping block for.
I was about to say Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a landing spot, but
Yeah, and so they could, if the Bengals do move on from Joe Mixon, which I'm leaning towards not, especially if you say they let go of Samaje Perine this offseason. But if they do, he could be an option there. If the Bengals could also make a move for Clyde Edwards-Helaire for like late draft capital, just to bring back the LSU boys. That's the only reason why I'd bring it up. But yeah, so I feel like they could be in the mix. And so if that happens, then the Chiefs, obviously they're not even using Helaire, but they could. I still think that they could make a move for Cook, just because you have Pacheco, who's a 7th-round pick. He played phenomenal, but again, he's kind of weaker in pass pro, and so you have that. Jerick McKinnon's a good receiving back, but then he also is a smaller guy. Yeah, that you could, when he's in, it's like, oh, it's probably going to be a pass play that, or like a sweep play, that kind of gets him the ball quickly that he can make plays off of. And so if you have a guy like Dalvin Cook, you can have more of a rotational, I guess, running back by committee there. But I just kind of, in general, now moving on to just kind of running backs that we like and free agent running backs. Obviously, there's a couple big name running backs still available. 3 being Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, and Leonard Fournette. Do you have any thoughts on like where you'd like them to sign? Do you think they'll get signed? They're all kind of that weird stage of Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, of kind of being older, having some miles under their feet, and not knowing exactly what's in store for their futures.
Yeah, I have two. I think that should be signed by now are Kareem Hunt and Ezekiel Elliott. I highly doubt the Cowboys will bring Ezekiel Elliott back, but who knows? That might change. There another location I was thinking that Dalvin Cook can get traded, assuming the Vikings would like to trade him within conference, regardless of which team it is. But I see Kareem Hunt as a really, really good fit for the Cowboys. I think he could still perform at an RB1 level if you're talking fantasy. I don't think he's lost any tread on his tires. And plus, with Kareem Hunt, you can still keep that Ezekiel Elliott role and Tony Pollard role that was working last year for that team. And whatever steps that Ezekiel Elliott has lost, quote unquote, like that can go to Kareem Hunt, who's clearly not lost any steps. And I think that's perfect. Speaking of which, Ezekiel Elliott, I think a good fit for him might be the Browns, because there's a lot of talk that Jerome Ford might be the number 2 option. I liked him coming out of college, but if they don't think he's mature enough right away to handle that responsibility, I think Ezekiel Elliott's a perfect complement to Nick Chubb, because they both play the same exact way. They're both very efficient between the tackles. Nick Chubb is a lot more explosive despite having a lot of ACL surgeries at this point in his career. Like, I'm talking about the ACL surgeries he's had during his college run. but he'd be a perfect backup to Nick Chubb, and he can definitely spell for Nick Chubb. Um, and I don't think there's any backs like 7 or 8 backs who have the technical refinement that Ezekiel Elliott does in between the tackles, despite the fact he's lost so much athletically. So um, those are two guys who I'm expecting to be signed,
Mhm.
and who the landing spots I like out of the free agents.
Yeah, and I think Ezekiel Elliott's an interesting case. I feel like for the past couple of years, people have just kind of been down on him, and so like because everyone's kind of just waiting for his fall off because obviously he's kind of regressed in play each year,
It's the
despite
age thing. Once you
it.
hit 30, they just say, "Oh, you're cooked."
Yeah, I mean he's only like 26 right now, though, isn't he?
Yeah, it's because he doesn't look as fast as he has been on tape, and
Yeah, and
like speed is like the cleavage of the NFL, dude. Like just because
mhm.
they have it, that doesn't mean like they're a really good running back. You still have to know
Yeah,
how to read blocks and leverage, and Ezekiel Elliott can do that.
yeah, and obviously like to me at least it feels like Tony Pollard's outplayed Ezekiel Elliott in terms of playmaking ability, especially with explosive plays because that's kind of I feel like it's part of the Cowboys' identity is like big explosive plays. I feel like that's just part of their ownership. Um,
Oh, whoops,
oh, good.
mistake on me.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see where Elliott goes. I wouldn't be surprised if Elliott signs back with the Cowboys on like a pretty team-friendly deal, especially with the fact that he's been unsigned for so long. Because I remember when he was first released, he was on Twitter saying, "Oh, these are the three teams I want to play with," and like players from all three of those teams are like, "Yeah, I'll pass." And so it's like it doesn't seem like he's as hot of a commodity as he may have thought he was. Like leaving the Cowboys, which is unfortunate for him. He's still young. He's only like I said, he's only 26, I think, years old, and so you'd think that he has a lot more in the tank. I think he can play good football, but like as a secondary option to a premier running back in the league. And I think that's probably his career path from here on out. Um, and then Kareem Hunt also is like he. I feel like he's a big wild card because obviously, like when he has had play time, he's played good, but it's just because it's been frankly quite limited being on the Browns behind Nick Chubb and just seeming like every running back that runs behind the Browns O line kind of just pops off. That I think teams aren't necessarily racing to sign him. Plus, I feel like there's a lot of just running back depth within the NFL right now, and that kind of just adds on to why Leonard Fournette's probably been unsigned is because there's a lot of depth. It's like, do you need to pay arguably $4 or $5 million for one of these guys when there's plenty of other running backs? We saw Latavius Murray last year be signed off practice squad and basically keep the Broncos offense alive. And you see, these guys that kind of just show up out of nowhere playing. Obviously, that's kind of just the life of the NFL is running backs get cycled through pretty quick. A lot of players can play good running back, and so I think that they can provide value to whatever teams they go to, but I understand why it's tricky. I think that more so they get signed closer to the season after running back injuries start to happen, and I think they'll still have relatively good seasons. I don't know if they'll have 1,000-yard seasons like they could have had over the past couple of years, but um, I still think that they can be serviceable options for whatever team signs them. Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of continuing with the running back track. I know there's a lot of running backs you liked in the draft, so we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about that now. But is there any guys that you like? Any spots that you liked in particular? Any spots that you thought you didn't like? But how do you feel about
Yeah,
that?
I'm gonna ignore the obvious ones because like Bijan Robinson and Jameer Gibbs, of course they're gonna start. They're gonna star
Yeah.
in on the Falcons and on the Lions. I have no doubt on that. So I'm not gonna focus on those two because I already know they're gonna produce right out of the gate. Um, I think the ones that you should really keep an eye out because they do have a path to like be the starting running back. Kendra Miller. I was referring to him when I was talking about the Saints running backs. I talked about him a lot when we were leading up to the draft, like how I liked him, how I think he's a sleeper in this class. He has a lot of like 3 down ability. He's just super smooth and elusive. Watching his tape as LSU, he makes everything look squeaky clean, easy, and running behind Alvin Kamara. Um, I think the one thing he needs to do is like learn how to handle contact balance, and then who's better at handling that than Alvin Kamara? Like every time, whether it's the offseason workouts or like in games, like Alvin Kamara always seems to evade tackles that like he should be dead to rights, just purely on strength. Like he's carrying defensive linemen, linebackers. When you see that, and you think about like what Kendrick Miller can provide right at the get go, and as he learns under Kamara, that's a spot I really really like for the Saints offense. Um, Another guy I really like, Tajay Spears, coming out of Tennessee, um, to the Tennessee Titans. I mean, and I like him for the simple reasons. Ignore the fact like whether or not he has an ACL. The I'm not going to focus on the medicals right now. He didn't seem to want to answer it, but we won't know until we see him play. For the time span that he has in the career and what he can provide on the football field, I think it'd be great behind Derrick Henry because yes, Derrick Henry has like long speed, but I think Tajay Spears is more explosive. He can pass catch a lot better than Derrick Henry, um, and he brings that lightning aspect and the thunder aspect that's really underrated. He's one of my top three backs in this class. I really like him a lot. And if the Tennessee Titans decide to move on from Derrick Henry, like Tajay Spears could be a lead back for the next 3 years to 5 years at least. We'll see what happens with his knee. I hope it's not like a Todd Gurley situation, but I'm really high on his prospects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think obviously, like from like a dynasty fantasy football perspective, Tajay Spears probably isn't the guy you want to go after just because there is that risk of how long can he actually play. But within that Titans offense, obviously you're able to run the ball with Henry 90% plus of the time. And so when you need that quick change of pace, I think Spears is a phenomenal option to have there where obviously, I feel like as a duo, they could do wonders in the league and basically be an unstoppable running back duo for the next however many years. And that might be their plan. They might think, oh, we only have 4 to 5 years left with Derrick Henry. So we'll draft a complimentary back that might just last 4 to 5 years. And all of a sudden you have an unstoppable running back duo for the next half decade. And that might be all you need. That might be the time frame you're trying to win a Super Bowl. Hopefully you're hoping, Will Levis pans out as the guy that you need to lead your offense. You got Treylon Burks as a stud receiver. You have Chig, who you hoping he's a good tight end for the next couple of years. And so I feel like you're kind of setting up the pieces to hopefully go on a run over the next little bit. But then, so I think that's a good move for the Titans. But I obviously, like you said, we'll see what happens when he actually gets to the field. Hopefully, it isn't like Todd Gurley. That's super depressing. Just Todd Gurley went from the best back in the league to basically being unplayable just because he can't play. But other running backs I liked, Roshan Johnson. I think he was a really underrated running back in this class. Obviously, he missed I'm pretty sure he missed senior day senior day because he was dealing with some type of injury. And so obviously he didn't get to showcase some of his talent there, but that's kind of when he started gathering a lot of buzz, in my opinion. And I think he has a pretty good shot at taking the starting role in Chicago. He is a really good, from what I've heard at least, he's a really good locker room personality. He's a good downhill runner. He can pass catch, and he is supposedly a pretty solid run blocker or a pass. He's a good running back that can pass block. And a big issue with a lot of running backs coming into the NFL as rookies is a lot of them just can't block during in pass pro. And so you have a guy like Roshan who is probably better than average, I guess. And that's a pretty solid thing to ask, especially because Khalil Herbert, obviously he's a smaller running back, and obviously he can be a good run blocker, or pass blocker, but it is obviously trickier for a smaller guy when you got a defensive end that's 6'3", weighs 250, trying to barrel you down. But I think that's a really good pick, and I think that he has potential, to be a starting running back in the league for a handful of years. And see, that's a good thing for your Bears, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I just like the fact that he just adds more depth to that team right now. So they're not pressured to like start him right away. They can
Uh-huh.
just let him naturally develop. From that aspect, he's really good. We talked about him on the pod. I really like his the fact that he's a quarterback before because he understands what the offense should be and where the openings are. So as a
Hmm.
receiver, I have no doubt he knows how to find the spots and zones. And I would hope he wouldn't have to run block as a running back.
Hmm.
I would hope that's not the case because he's there to run.
Yeah.
But well, we know you're a little bit tired right now, so I'll let you off the hook today. But yeah, no, he's a really good fit. Um, before we get out of here, I want to chalk up one guy, and along with Taji Spears and Kendrick Miller, he's one of my favorite running backs. He got drafted in the 6th round. Yeah, 6th round, pick 38 to the Rams. Zach Evans. Remember that name, Zach Evans. I think he's one of the most underrated running backs in this class, um, and a lot of it has been off the field. And if you really look at him, like off the field, it's not as big as people are making it out to be. Um, you don't want to see Cam Akers get hurt again. Like he's such a good story coming back from his Achilles injury. But in the event that situation occurs, this guy's RB1 for the Rams. Get him, draft him, and redraft at the end of your rounds. Trust me, he's the guy you want. He can do everything. He's like he's like Nick Chubb to the Saquon Barkley Bijan Robinson, if that makes sense. Like he has the best technical refinement in this draft class, and I think he can also take it to the house at times. So that's another name to remember.
Hmm. Yep. And obviously, we're running a little bit short on time. We wanted to talk a little bit more about receivers, but we'll keep you on the edge of your seats until next time we talk. But um, yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I liked talking about things. Remember to follow us on our Instagram, amon.a.mission. We also got, obviously, here's our YouTube. We got Spotify. Make sure to check us out on both spots. We have our link tree on our Instagram. So please look at us. It makes us happy when you give us more views. So please watch us and listen to us.
Look at the depressing tone on Corstian's face. He wants your support. I know he looks like he's about to fall asleep right now. So I'll end us off here. Thank you guys so much for another great time. We are growing. We're a small bunch. We're trying to figure out this YouTube thing, this podcast thing. We're learning. We're learning. We're trying to get more into the MLB and NHL. Where it's a progress. It's a progress, but we got 3 months, and I hope you enjoyed our NFL talk and our NBA talk. If anything. If you have any comments, concerns, or feedback for us, drop them down in the comments below. With that, see you guys later.
Peace.